So, for those of you who are not aware, our guest in this week's episode, episode number 22, is Jared Zach. Jared does a lot of audiobook narration, and it inspires me to do my own bit of dramatic flair and recite a passage for an audiobook. Hop, pop. We like to hop. We like to hop on top of pop. Stop. You must not hop on pop. Call me audible. This episode of the Performers I Know coming at you. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are the performers I know. These are performers I know. All right, everybody, welcome to the Performers I Know. This is episode number 22. Ooh, I'm starting to run out of intros for this thing. I'm going to have to start going back and doing the intros all over again. Ugh. This week, my guest, all the way from Studio, New Jersey, he is an actor. He does audiobooks, which is, I think that's a first for our show. Very good narration, very smooth, silky, buttery smooth, jazzy voice. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest this week is none other than Mr. Jared Zach. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So, once upon a time, in the summer of 2023, much like with Zoe Rock, I was cast with Jared in a production of Beauty and the Beast at Brundage Park Playhouse. Jared played Foxy inventor Maurice, and he was just absolutely incredible. That's where I met, as Ray Gelke likes to call the Three Stooges of Jared and Nick Short and Owen McKenna. Uh, Nick and Owen, who I hope to interview for this podcast in the future because they're also quite hilarious fellows. But Jared, my first question to you, as I ask all of my guests, what got you bitten by the theater bug? What got you interested in acting?
Well, as long as I can remember, I've been a singer, and really my interest in the stage stemmed from my love of singing. So, according to my mother, I was singing on pitch as early as like 2 or 3. I also have what is known as perfect pitch, which, depending on your point of view, is either a blessing or a curse. So I've always known when something is on key or off key. I've always had an interest in music. I play several instruments, and I've sung in choirs and bands for most of my life. And like being on stage in musicals gives me an opportunity to sing as well as act. So the
I mean,
opportunity to do that was always something in my mind growing up, although I was never really able to take advantage of that until high school. But
well,
yeah, to make a long story short, my interest in the theater is directly connected to my background as a singer.
all right. I would consider you having perfect pitch to be a blessing. Me, on the other hand, there's a reason why when I was Cogsworth, I sang most of my stuff because I'm an awful singer, ladies and gentlemen. I have what is called anti-pitch. It is pitched so bad that people invade my house and order me to stop singing. Yeah, it's a remarkable thing, and that is why I tend to not really like to sing if I really don't have to. But yes, so Jared was in the cast of Beauty and the Beast. And I remember very early on, the whole crew took to me this Staten Islander who schlepped an hour away to do the show. And for that, I am very, very grateful for such kindness from everybody. So Jared was part of Beauty and the Beast. And what was your experience like, Jared, doing such a crazy show with a bunch of crazy, wacky people such as Brundage Park?
I think it was one of the best shows I have ever done, if not the best I've ever done. I won't lie, I had auditioned originally hoping to be the part of the Beast, and obviously, as you know, I wound up being Maurice, but it was an extremely enjoyable experience. It was an opportunity to do a part, a kind of part that I had never really done before. Usually, in my experience in theater, I'm generally cast as authoritative types, I suppose, because of my voice. So usually there's a lot of yelling and a lot of, like bravado, whereas Maurice is a very loving, tender character. He loves his daughter. He wants to do anything to protect her. And that was an opportunity to do a part that I had never done before. And of course, an opportunity to act with a lot of my friends who I had been in a previous show with at Brundage Park, meet new people such as your lovely and talented host, Dane Forgione,
Oh,
and
oh,
working with a great director, Anna Gelpke. And Dane, as you remember, those shows sold out like hotcakes. Like it was such a
you,
high caliber show.
I feel like Anna said very early on in our rehearsal run, she's like, we already have people who are reserving seats for the show. Like, and apparently that sort of thing never happens in Brundage Park. So yeah, we were onto something real, real big. And it was spectacular. And
It
it's a
was.
funny thing. You mentioned that you were going originally for the Beast. I was gunning for LeFou in like the worst way. Now, I just and I was flinging myself all over the stage doing the LeFou pratfalls, and I did that during the audition and the callback. And I'm just like, oh, come on, baby, come on, LeFou. And then I think I got the offer for Cogsworth. I was like, oh, all right, yeah, I'll accept the role of Cogsworth.
I remember waiting for the casting confirmation emails. That may have been the most stressful day of my life. I actually called out of work because I was so nervous waiting for what the casting call was going to be. And I
Oh,
remember, what was it, like a day or something before? And Anna, I didn't know Anna had such a, what's the word? Like a vicious streak. She sent an email, like, we have not decided yet, but thank you for coming out. We will announce the final cast within the next couple days. It's like, come on, just
yeah,
put me
she
out of my
literally she
misery.
pulled an AEW to say like we are sending this email to tell you that we're going to be sending another email very soon. Like, oh, come on, just give us
Yeah.
the cast back. What are you doing? So I mentioned this when Zoe Rock was on the show. A lot of people. I was a little disappointed at first, and I remember people in my circle of friends going, but Cogsworth's a bigger role than LeFou. Like, why are you disappointed? It's because I wanted to get beat up on stage and sing the Gaston song. Like, come on, give me a little. People have dreams, don't they?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I mean, like I'll be totally honest. I almost didn't do the show. I was very disappointed, but our friends Nick Short and Owen McKenna managed to convince me to do the show. And similar to what happened with you, like Maurice is a very significant part of the show. In some ways, he's the reason all this happens in the first place.
I mean,
So
yeah, Maurice, I meant to tell you that. Like, if you would have just taken a map with you, you would have made your way to the fair and you wouldn't have gotten lost. So,
yeah.
I'm not saying that this is all your fault, but this is kind of all your fault. So, yes. I mentioned at the top of the show that Jared does a lot of audiobook narration. He has experience with that. How did this come about? Because you had said that this was born out of your acting experience was born out of your love of doing singing and choir. But how did doing voiceover narration fall into your lap?
Well, I mean, I've always been an avid reader. I mean, that definitely helps, but as you can probably imagine, for as long as I can remember, for example, back in elementary school and throughout my school days, whenever I was asked to read something in class, everybody would always go, "Oh, you have such a great reading voice. You should do radio." And eventually, as time went on, when audiobooks became a thing, no, you should do audiobooks. So after years of that, finally it sunk in. And I was like, all right, maybe I should try doing something like this. So my mother actually had looked up opportunities for audiobooks, and one of the things she had found was a volunteer program at the New York Public Library called the Talking Books Program. And I reached out to the director of the program, James Langton, who largely took me under his wing. In many ways, the fact that I am here as a professional audiobook narrator now is because of James's help. But I started volunteering at the New York Public Library, I think around 2018, late 2018, after I'd graduated college. And I read a few books there and basically got my training wheels. And I was able to use James as a reference when I started reaching out to audiobook studios in the area. And I got my first professional gig with a studio called Common Mode in East Hanover, New Jersey. And that was, I think, late 2019. So that was my very first professional paid gig as an audiobook narrator. And I got sporadic books, sporadic projects from them. I would get a couple every couple months or so. And then in 2020, the funniest thing happened, as I'm sure we all know. And my career kind of was on the back burner for a little while. And then I reached out to a studio in New York City called Index Audio, where interestingly enough, they had worked with a former coworker of mine, Iggy Herman, who used to be an engineer there. So it seems in a lot of things, it's who you know that helps you get connections and move forward in your career. And I started working with them in May of 2021, and I have been there ever since. I'm there regularly in Midtown Manhattan, Index Audio. And the main thing they do is for a program for the Library of Congress called the National Library Service, which is audiobooks for the blind and people who can't see very well. So I think I have done around 80 audiobooks for the National Library Service in the last 3 years or so.
Ooh.
So yeah, I am like the voice of the NLS at this point.
Oh my.
And I've also done a few commercial audiobooks here and there that are available on Audible.
You and Jason Amherst, my good friend Jason Amherst, who came to see Beauty and the Beast, you guys would get along very well because you both are big on voice acting and doing like audiobooks and whatnot. And you both have buttery, sweet, silky voices. As a matter of fact, fun fact, Jared did the opening narration for Beauty and the Beast.
I did.
Yes, and you did it, it was pre-recorded, right?
No, actually, they were originally going to pre-record it, but eventually I decided to, in the words of Owen McKenna, alias Bill O'Reilly, do it live.
Oh, yes, yes. Now I remember you. And I remember um, my parents, when they came to see the show, they were like, "Who did that narration at the beginning? That was amazing." It was Maurice. So it was fun, fun, fun. Um, you mentioned that you've done a lot of very authoritative, in charge kind of roles. And it really showed because the last two shows that you've done, I believe, well, one is Damn Yankees, which we'll get to in a moment. The other one was, I believe, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Yes.
Yes, you played authoritative people because you played the owner of the team in Damn Yankees, and you were a priest in kind of Hot Tin Roof. I believe, or Reverend priest.
Yeah, the Reverend.
Yes. Now, I sometimes find myself as a very like a creature of habit. I like the shows that I like, and I tend to not really like to go out of my comfort zone too much. Was something like this, kind of Hot Tin Roof, was that out of your comfort zone, or is that something that you've done before, like a play of that magnitude?
I had actually never done a straight play before. That was my first non-musical ever. So in that sense, it was definitely out of my comfort zone.
Ah, okay. Because I remember I was seeing video clips of the character, and you just had this. I don't know if you just had this very befuddled look on your face. Was the character meant to be like, oh, oh, I just don't know?
I mean, the thing about that character is he's I mean, for those of you listening who aren't familiar with the show, it's set in the Deep South in the 1950s, and the patriarch of a plantation in the Delta in Mississippi, he's dying of cancer, and everybody knows he's dying of cancer except for himself and his wife.
It's a family show.
Yeah. And pretty much everybody else is trying to get something out of it. Like his two sons and their respective wives are trying to get control of the plantation. The Reverend is trying to get donations for his church. And at the same time, he's trying to, while of course he's trying to hold himself as a model of piety. And I'm above all this. I'm a man of God. At the same time, he's subtly trying to get some money for his church. And
Yeah,
at the same time, he's got to
just a
deal
little
with all this
nudge,
ridiculousness that's going on around him.
little nudge in the right direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I did a lot of virtual readings with groups in and around 2020. And there was just a lot of shows that normally I would never even dare step foot into. Like I did The Crucible, and it's such a long, depressing show.
I remember reading that back in high school. Yeah.
And it's just like, like I would never want to do that in person, but it's like, you know what? You only live once, and we're in the middle of a friggin' pandemic, so why not um do something like that? And I actually did like shows like Crimes of the Heart and Five Women Wearing the Same Dress. Like these are things I had never heard of. And after I did them, I had a kind of a newfound respect for some of these shows. I didn't enjoy all of them, but I did like the experience of getting to try new things. Um, Now, as I said, Jared did Damn Yankees, and I happened to be in the audience for one of the performances, and I just loved every second of it. And again, there's Jared playing the owner of the team, very big, boisterous himself. What was it like getting to do something of that magnitude?
I mean, like you said, big, boisterous character in many ways. Same old thing. Nothing new, same old thing. And unfortunately, I didn't get to sing in that production until the very end. The owner of the team doesn't get to sing.
No.
But again, it was that was a show where I kind of stepped in at the last minute because they hadn't found anybody to play that role. And my friends, the other two Stooges, Owen McKenna and Nick Short, were in it. Our other friend, another member of the Stooges, I guess the Four Stooges now, Alex Gelpke was in it. A lot of people I had done
Oh,
shows with in the past were in it. Bob Scarpone, who played Benny Van Buren, the what was he, the coach?
yeah.
Yeah, the coach, and he's phenomenal. I had done 1776 with him back in 2019. Everything that man touches is gold, in my opinion.
So if you Owen and Nick are the Three Stooges, would that make Alex Skelty? Would he be Shem or would he be Curly Joe? I don't know. That's a good
I,
question.
I, I, I'm not sure. That's a good question.
But actually, the one thing about this production that I didn't realize until much later is that the descendants of George Abbott came to see the show. I believe that actually the night that I was there, they were
Yeah,
there.
was Abbott the one who wrote the music?
Yes. Well, yes, yes. Actually, no. I tell a lie. Music and lyrics by Richard Adler and Jerry Ross. Was it Richard Adler?
I I,
I might be
I think it was
confusing
I think it was
myself.
the family of the one who wrote the music, because I
Okay.
think the one who wrote the lyrics died young. Am I correct?
Yes. Wow, this is very professional, folks. Jerry Ross suddenly died of chronic bronchitis at age 29. So,
Yes, I think it was Adler. Yeah, it was Adler's family who came.
okay. See, folks, I'm willing to own up to it when I make a mistake, and I just made a mistake back there. So it was not George Abbott's family; it was Jerry Ross's family or Richard Adler's family. Yes. And what was it like having the even the family members of somebody who had wrote the show to come and see you guys perform in it?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to personally meet them, but according to our wonderful director, Becky Tank, they loved it. And in a way, it's insane. Like, think about it. The family of a musical theater legend coming to see a local production of Damn Yankees and loving it. It's in many ways mind-blowing and humbling.
Absolutely. Um, I think the closest I ever came to being in the presence of somebody who was part of a musical. Years back, I was in Jekyll and Hyde in a community production in Staten Island. And the big selling point was, oh, we're gonna have somebody special is gonna come and coach you guys from one of the rehearsals. And we're like, oh, well, that's really interesting. Who could it be? And it was apparently Robert Cuccioli, who he was the originator of the Jekyll and Hyde role on Broadway.
Oh,
He,
wow.
yeah, he knew one of the people who was helping direct, and he came and honestly, he just seemed like a very like, oh, hi, I'm Robert Cuccioli. How are you? It was he was a very humble, very kind of like quiet type of guy. So that was actually very interesting. But it's funny. We were talking about the role in Damn Yankees that you had wasn't filled. The same thing kind of happened to me when I did Damn Yankees many years ago.
I
I
didn't know you
came
had
in.
done Damn Yankees.
What's that?
I didn't know you had been in Damn Yankees before.
Oh yes. I was 14, 15, and I joined this acting group in Staten Island, and they were putting on Damn Yankees, and they didn't have Applegate cast yet. So I came in and met everybody, and so the director goes, "Oh, hey, we're doing Damn Yankees. You want to be Applegate, the devil? Yeah, sure, okay. All right, great. You have the part. Like, oh, that was the easiest audition I've ever had.
Nice.
Yeah. So, well, what's funny is the woman who was playing Lola was in her 30s, and she was smoking hot. So here I am, 15-year-old, and she's singing her little ditty that she sings to Applegate, um, a little brains, a little talent, and she's dancing around me, gyrating, all this stuff. And apparently, according to the director, by the this is the first time we ever um, rehearsed this. My face was beet red, and the director was like, "Dane, you gotta like, I'm gonna need you to not like get overly excited, like, well, what do you want me to do when a hot older woman is dancing around me? Like, I can't help myself." So yeah, that was a thing that happened. But yes, I can see from the old clock on the wall that we are running out of time. But as much as I would like to continue talking with Mr. Jared, we're going to have to get to the very last question that I have. And this is a question that I ask everybody on the show. Jared, if somebody were to come up to you and say, "Hey, Jared, I want to break into singing, doing choir, doing acting, doing audiobooks," what would be the piece of advice that you would give them in order for them to best succeed?
Definitely, you have to keep at it. Like one of the things I learned when I first started pursuing voiceover as a career, when I was taking like classes for this, actually, interestingly enough, one of the first thing they said is don't think about it as breaking in, because that makes it seem like, oh, you're just kind of lucking out. In a lot of, I mean, and I'm not saying luck isn't part of it, but at the same time, it's about being persistent. You got to put yourself out there. You got to be in touch with people. Sometimes you might not hear a response, but you got to keep not necessarily pestering them, but making yourself known to them. And eventually you will get something. You have to be confident in your own abilities, and you have to keep pushing it, keep getting at it, and you will get something. If you have the talent, and if you have the confidence in yourself, and if you have the persistence to keep putting yourself out there, you will get work.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as our outro takes us out, I want to thank my guest, Jared Zach. Jared, thank you very much for being here today.
Again, thank you so much for having me. May I say the thing now that we're at the end?
You may say the thing, yes.
Well, it's about time I be hitting that old dusty trail. If you know,
yes,
you know.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. We are about to hit that dusty trail, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for listening in, and we'll see you at the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.